In this lesson, we are going to learn how to write the equations for ellipses and hyperbolas using information that we're given about those conic sections. So just kind of the reverse way of looking at the conic sections. So I've got some grid paper as the background here because it really helps to do these problems if you can graph what it is you're looking at. And so to write the equation, in this video, we're going to do the ellipses. We're going to be given certain information. We have to figure out how to put that into an equation. So remember that an ellipse is going to be in this format. Okay, and so you have to make it look like that. Okay, so when it says standard form, that's what we're talking about. So it says the vertices of this ellipse are at 9, 0, and negative 9, 0. So I'm going to get an origin here, and I'm going to graph 9, 0, and negative 9, 0. And the co-vertices are at 0, 7, and 0, negative 7. And so I'm going to just kind of draw it because it just kind of helps me visualize what it is I'm looking at. And so I can see from my picture that this is my major axis, and since this is a length of 9, I know that x squared, and my center is at 0, 0, so it's going to be x squared and y squared because it's not translated anywhere. I know that my major axis is going to be 9 squared, and that my minor axis will be 7 squared, and so there's my equation. Okay, let's try another one. So in this one, the vertices are at 0, 13, and 0, negative 13. So notice that that's on the y-axis, okay? So when I do my equation, the number that's under the y squared is going to be bigger than the one that's under the x squared. So just kind of noticing things like that will help me when I go to write my equation. So I'm going to graph 0, 13, and 0, negative 13. Okay, so I've got 0, 13, and 0, negative 13. The next thing are the foci, and they're at 0, 12, and 0, negative 12. So I know that my major axis is going to be the y, and I also know how far apart it is. So that's a distance of 13, so 13 squared is 169. I know there's a plus there. I know that x squared. The only question is, what's that number? Well, I know that 169 minus whatever a squared is has to be 12 squared. And so I just solved that equation then. So I'm going to put a squared on the other side. 169 minus 144 is 25. So a is going to have to be 5. And so my minor axis, if I was to go and graph this, I would be going 5 like this. So this is what my ellipse would look like. Okay, I'm not going to scoot it down and do the rest of it, but that's how that would look. And so this number right there will be 25. And so that's how I figured that out using the foci as information. So remember how you find the foci in the first place. Okay, let's try another one. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure this out based on what information you're given, and then turn the video back on and see if you got it right. Okay, on this one, because the foci are at 3, 0 and negative 3, 0, that's on the x-axis. And so keeping in mind that those are the foci, not the vertices. Okay, I'm going to put a little f right there so I don't forget that. The endpoints or the major axis are at 5, 0 and negative 5, 0. So those are your vertices, okay? So when I go to write my equation, since it's on the x-axis, I'm going to have a 25 right there because this distance is 5. And just like we did on the last problem, the center is at 0, 0, so that's easy to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, since the foci are 3 away, I know that 25 minus whatever b squared is has to be 3 squared, which is 9. And so the difference between 25 and 9 is 16. So 25 minus 16 is equal to 9. So this number right here has to be a 16. And so that's what my ellipse would look like. Okay, the next one, number 4, we're given some different information. So the center we're told is at 0, 0. So that's nice because I know that it's going to look like this. Okay, those are some things I know just before I do anything else. I'm given one vertex and one focus. which really is just as helpful as if I'm given two of them. The vertex is at 0, negative 13. So if this is my center and a 0, negative 13 is down there, then my major axis, because that's a vertex, is going to be 169 for the a squared or b squared. And in this case, it's going to be under the y because it's a vertical line. 0, negative 13 is on the y-axis. The focus is at 0, 5. Okay, so that's a focus. That's a vertex down there. That's the center. And so again, I do the 169 minus a squared is equal to 5 squared. And you get to know that these numbers, they kind of become familiar because you work with them a lot. And so this is going to be 144 right there. So just depending on what kind of information you're given, you're able to come up with an equation. And the equations always look the same. You just have to know which numbers go in which spot. So let's try another one. So again, pause this and get the equation. It's similar to the one we just did, but a little bit different. So go ahead and pause and see if you can come up with a correct equation. Okay, since the center is at 0, 0, I know that at least it's going to look like this, and so I really only have two numbers that I have to find. The vertex is on the x-axis, and so I know that 13 squared is going to go right there. I also know that 169 minus whatever b squared is has to equal negative 5 squared, which is 25. And so again, because those numbers are being very familiar, there you go. Okay, the next question, we've got something a little bit different. And so this is especially where you would want to have some graph paper to be able to graph what you're looking at. So the vertices are at 2, 3, and negative 14, 3. So you can tell just by looking at that the center is not at 0, 0. So I can tell that I'm going to have x, and then plus or minus something, and then I'm going to have and squared, and then y, same thing, equals 1. I'm going to have over the a squared and the b squared. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of call my origin. I'm going to say, here's my origin right here. That's not the center, though. So I'm going to go to 2, 3, so over 2 and up 3. Okay, and that's a vertex. And then negative 14. And that's my other vertex. So my major axis is still in the x direction. Okay, so I do know that the number under the x will be the bigger number. I just have to figure out how big is it going to be. So I need to find the halfway point. So this is a distance of 2, and this is a distance of 14, and so that's a distance of 16. And so the major axis is 16. Half of that is 8, and 8 squared is 64. And so I'm just thinking about the things that I've learned previously about graphing and kind of working backwards with that. We could find the midpoint of these 2 points, which would be the center. And so if you remember finding the midpoint of 2 points, you're going to say 2 plus negative 14 and then divide it by 2. So you're finding the average of those 2 points. That's negative 12 divided by 2, which is negative 6. So negative 6 is the midpoint, negative 6, and then negative 3, of course. So that's the center. And so that helps me because since negative 6 is the x-coordinate, I'm going to put plus 6 inside, and then positive 3, so I'm going to put minus 3 inside, because remember how the signs work opposite. So the center is x minus h, and then y minus k. So that sign that's in there, it's going to come out opposite. So this equation that I have so far written up here, that's going to tell me that my center is at negative 6, positive 3. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do, my co-vertices, that means the ones up here and down here. Okay, those are going to be at negative 6, positive 9. So if I would have looked ahead, the co-vertices are going to be on that same line of your mid or your center. So that was another clue that negative 6 really is the center point of that. So I'm going to go negative 6 and then 9. Remember, I'm already at 3, so I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more. And then negative 3. And so these are the co-vertices, and that tells me about my minor axis. So my minor axis, this is a difference from 3 to 9. That's a difference of 6. So 6 squared is 36. And so here I have my equation. You just have to know how to use the information that's being given to you. Okay, I'm going to have you guys try one now. So number 7, you're given the vertices and the co-vertices, so just like the one before. And so you come up with the equation and then come back to the video and see if you got it right. Okay, I have here a graph and I have 0, 0 for my reference. So I put that in there so I'd have a place to start. And so from 0, 0, I graph my vertices and then my co-vertices. My center point then is easy enough to find. It's at -3, -9. And so I can use that for my equation. So x plus 3 and y plus 9 equals 1. And then I'm going to figure out how far to go on the vertices. So for the x-axis, that's my major axis. And so how far is that? From -3 to +3, that's a difference of 6. So I'm going to have 36. And then on my co-vertices, that's a difference of 5. And so I'm going to have a 25 right there. And so there's my equation. Okay, number 8, try one more. The vertices are at 22, 9 and -4, 9. So that tells me that I'm going to go up the same amount. So, you know, if this, and I can just kind of sketch it. So if this is 22, 9, and this is -4, 9, I'm just sketching this now. You don't really have to do a grid every single time if you have the idea of where everything is. You're going to need to find the midpoint of that. So 22 plus -4 divided by 2, that's going to be 18 divided by 2. So my midpoint is 9, 9. That's my center. And then my foci are at 21, 9 and -3, 9. And so the foci difference between here and here, from 9 to 21, that's a difference of 12. And then from the center to the vertex is a difference of 13. And so when I go to write my equation, I'm going to have my center equals 1, of course. And then for my major axis, it's under the x, and so it's going to be the 13 squared, or 169. The foci, the 144 is not going to go here. Okay, I'm not going to do 144 there because that's not what the minor axis is. That's the foci. So what I'm finding is I'm saying 169 minus 144 equals whatever that number is that's going to make the b squared. Okay, that's the same as saying 169 minus b squared is equal to 144. So again, those familiar numbers that you come to see a lot. Okay, so if I did this, 169 minus 25 is 144. The square root of that is 12, and that will give me the foci. So with this ellipse, it looks like something like this. I can do that with just a sketch. So you don't necessarily have to grid it out, but you should sketch it to find out what everything is.